Hi, I'm James Williams and welcome back to my channel. So in this video, I want to take a look at using Power Automate to fill in a Word template. But we're going to look at a particularly difficult scenario where we want to have optional sections in our document. So sections that we either want to include or exclude on a particular run of the flow. And particularly further within that optional section, we're going to include an image that we want to dynamically change when we run the flow. So in this example here, I've got a space at the top for the name and the score of a candidate for an assessment. So this is following on from the theme of my earlier videos where we auto-scored a Microsoft Forms quiz. And then I've got two sections down here which are optional. So the first is a passed section. We want to include this where the candidates passed the assessment. And that includes an image of a medal. We'll come back to that. And then here is the second optional section, which we want to include if the candidate failed the assessment. There's no image in that. So this image of the medal, I want to change the colour of based on the score that the candidate achieved meeting certain thresholds. So that will set the medal to be bronze, silver, or gold. So the first thing I'd like to do is show you how you might attempt to do this using the built-in Word fields and the Power Automate premium connector for Words action, which is populate a Microsoft Word template. However, when we get to it, we'll see why we can't actually achieve this using those tools. So the first thing I've done here is I've already included these fields. So here's a name field. That's just a plain text control, plain text content control from the Develop tab up here. Same with the score. And then this whole section here, this optional section, I've included as a repeating section content control. So in Word, that means you can have one or more of these sections in, but you can actually also have zero. So by selecting to have 0 or 1 of these repeating sections, we can make this into an optional section. So I'll show you how we can do that in Power Automate. That's a repeating section, and so is the failed section down here. The image I've included in a image content control that's within the repeating section, within the past section. And then the other thing is I've got a plain text content control within each of the repeating sections, which I'll explain in a minute. That one's just called delete me, and the one within the failed repeating section is called delete me too. So here I am in Power Automate, and I've built a very simple flow to try and demonstrate what I want to achieve. I've got a manual trigger here that's going to provide a demonstration of a dynamic choice for the name of the candidate and their score. So that's a text and a number field inputting to the trigger of the flow. And then I've got a condition. So the condition is the score greater or equal to 60? So we're scoring from 0 to 100. 60 is going to be the pass mark. Then, so if that's true, if the candidate has passed the assessment, we're going to run this populate a Microsoft Word template action. So this is the one in the pass lane. So I've saved the fields template docx file to my OneDrive. And you'll notice when you select a file that contains fields, they appear as parameters to that action as they are here. So we've got the score section here. They're not in the same order, but we've got the score fields. And I've just put the string of the score from the trigger in there. We've got the name field, and I've just put that straight in from the trigger using the dynamic content. And then we've got the failed and the passed section. And if I just flick this over to the entire array mode, you'll see that in the failed section on this pass lane here, we have an empty array, so just an open and closed square brackets. Whereas in the passed section, we've just included an empty text string for that delete me field that we saw. Now this is the reason why I included those fields in the repeating section, because if you don't have at least one text control in each of those sections, they don't even show up in Power Automate for you to pass parameters to, so you wouldn't be able to achieve this. On the other side, we've got the fail version, which is the same except for delete me 2 is in there with an empty text string in the failed repeating section, and the pass section in this case is that empty array. Then after each of those Word templates has been completed, all we've done is save the output to a SharePoint site. So that one's going to be called pass.docx, and that one's going to be called fail.docx. So I've run this already, and we can go and see those outputs in the pass and fail. So there's a previous run where I entered the name James and the score 70. Congratulations on passing the assessment has appeared, and the failed bit of text at the bottom is not included. And if I go into the failed document, we'll see in there the medals disappeared, so is that text at the top. But we've got the sorry you've not passed this time text. So that's worked, but you'll have noticed I've not explained how to do any of this stuff with images yet in terms of getting a bronze, silver or gold. And that's because once you put an image control, a field from the developer tab into the Word template, and you put it within a repeating section, it doesn't actually appear here. So you can see that Power Automate here is expecting that delete me field, but there's no way for me to add in, at least without knowing more about the field, the details of the image. And even if I did know the details of the field for the image and I added it in manually, it wouldn't work. So this built-in premium action populator Microsoft Word template can't deal with an image being in a repeating section. So we won't be able to use that to achieve what we want to here. So to actually achieve what we want to, I've built my own custom template. So this doesn't use any fields. All it does is a kind of custom way of identifying which parts of the document I want to update dynamically. So I've used 3 opening square brackets. I've given my pretend field a tag, so in this case it's name, and then I use 3 closing square brackets in order to notify the end of that dynamic field. So these first 2, we want the same thing to happen. We just want to replace this bit with a name, and we want to replace this bit with a score. But then what I've done is for this optional section, so the pass section, I've got passed within those same 3 brackets, but I've also got a / and passed at the end of that section. So that, very much like HTML, is an opening and closing tag containing the whole of that section which I want to include or not include. I've not included that delete me section. That was only to please the Word action, but because we didn't need that to be included, I've not included that here. We've just got the text for the section, and we've got the image which we want to replace later on dynamically, and then we've got the failed section down here with the failed opening and closing tag in the same fashion. So how are we going to amend that Word document within Power Automate? Well, did you know that .docx files are just basically zipped files containing predetermined sets of files that Word expects to see? So if I rename this, I'll demonstrate what I mean. So if I change that from .docx to .zip, yes, I'm sure I want to change it, and I go into that zip file, you'll see that there's all sorts of folders and XML files within here. So I've had a bit of a dig around already, and I found that inside this Word folder, we've got this document.xml. That sounds promising. If I open that up, you'll see here, although it's all XML, we can see bits of the document that we're familiar with. So there's that line, the name, and the field I've created. Again, same here with score. And then in this area here, I've got that past opening tag. Further on down, I've got the congratulations message. This must be, there's a picture, the word picture anyway, so this must be to do with that graphic. And then there's my closing tag and the failed section. So all the bits of my document are within this XML file. And then equally, if I minimize this, within the media folder, this is where my image has been saved. So this is the image of the bronze medal at the moment. So if I can extract this from a Word document into a set of files in my OneDrive, say, using Power Automate, and then edit the content of these files dynamically, and then zip them all back up, I should be able to create a Word document dynamically using the flow. So that's exactly what I'm going to do, and I'm only going to do it with standard connectors. So this is the flow I've built. I'll do a whistle-stop tour of it now, and then we'll go into some more detail in a minute. So at the top, we've got the trigger, the same trigger with the name and the score coming into the flow. And then we're initializing a variable, which is an array type variable, and it's just called operations. So this is the array in which I'm going to store everything I want to do to the template Word document. And we're going to do everything, all those actions within this scope here, populate custom Word template. So the first thing I'm doing here is I've just, with a quick compose action, put down the name of the folder I want to use as a temporary folder to extract all my Word document internal files into. And then I've got an extract archive to folder. This is a built-in action from the OneDrive connector. So I'm going to take that custom template.docx file. This is where it's saved at the moment in the Word templates folder of my OneDrive. And I've used that destination folder path as where I want that zip file essentially to be extracted to. And I've selected overwrite so that I don't need to go and delete that later on. Every time I run this flow, that zip file will just be overwritten. Then I'm getting the content of the document.xml file we looked at a moment ago, which will give me back all that good XML, which we'll then start to work with. So initially what we're doing is we're starting to build up that operations array. And the first thing I'm doing here is, well, I'm saying that the tag I'm interested in is called name. The operation I want to do is replace. So I want to replace that tag with something. And in this case, the argument for that replace operation is going to be the name from the trigger. So that should just replace the name tag with the name of the candidate. And then the same for the score. We're taking the score, that's the name of the tag. We're replacing that tag with something, and what we're replacing it with, in this case, the string of the score from the trigger body as well. So the next action here is get file metadata using path, and we're doing this for the medal file within the extracted folder. So looking within that temporary folder, within that Word media subfolder inside the zip, there was that image1.jpg file, which is the file that's saved for the bronze version of the medal. So we've got all that information, and then we've got the same condition from the previous flow we looked at, which is the score greater or equal to 60, which in this case is the pass mark. And if it's true, we're going to go down this branch, and if it's false, we're going to go down this branch. So the first two actions are more inputs to that array. So we're appending here to that array variable. And in the case of passing the exam, we're appending the tag passed, and the operation this time is include, because this is one of those optional sections, and we're telling the flow here that we want to include that optional section. There's no other argument here. There's nothing for me to tell it. We're just including or excluding a particular optional section using its tag. So we're including passed and we're excluding failed. So it's the same, except the tag name's changed to failed and the operation is exclude, not include. And in the alternate version of the flow where the candidate has failed the exam, we're going to include failed and we're going to exclude passed. So the next thing we want to do if the candidate has passed is we're going to get the file content using a path of the medal image we want to use. So in this Word templates folder in my OneDrive, I've got 3 versions of the medal image: medal bronze, medal silver, and medal gold. And here I've put all that path in except for this dynamic part in the middle that's going to set the word to use, so bronze, silver, or gold, based on the score. So we can see if I open that expression that if the score, so trigger body number, is greater than or equal to 80, then that's going to be a gold pass mark, and we'll use the gold image. If on the other hand it's only greater or equal to 70, then we'll use the silver, and otherwise we're going to use bronze, which is the existing image anyway. So I'll leave that expression there. And so when we've got the file, what we're going to do now is update the file. So here I've got the file locator, and I've got that from the get medal file metadata using path action above that we just talked about. So that's the file locator property that's returned from that. And then the file content is the output of this action. So we're going to overwrite that image1.jpg file with whichever image is the correct image to use based on the score. And then on the failed side of the flow, we've got a delete file. So we might as well shrink the file size down if we don't need that image in it because the candidate hasn't passed. So we're just going to delete using that same locator the image1.jpg file from the extracted folder. Then this is the heart of the operation, this run script. This is an Office script that's going to take all those operations in the operations array that we've built up so far, and it's going to apply them to the XML. This is the get file content using path. This is the one that looked at the document.xml file. And so I'll come back to the script later, but what that's going to do is just apply all those operations to the XML file, and that will return us the updated XML that we want to use to create the output Word document, which we'll do by overwriting the XML file with a create file action here. It's the action's create file, but it's going to overwrite the existing file because the path and the file name point to an existing document in my OneDrive. So this is just that temp folder. In the Word subfolder, we've got document.xml, and the file content is going to be the result of me running that script, which will output the updated XML. And then we've got this subscope here called create zip file. So this is a way you can create a zip file using Power Automate. It's still only standard connectors. There's no premium connectors here. All I've done here is put the full SharePoint address of my OneDrive, and then I've got some other actions here which I won't go into details with because they're very complicated and I didn't come up with them. But essentially, I followed Paul Morana's guide, which I'll link to in the description below, on how to create a zip file using the SharePoint HTTP action. So that's following that whole process. And out of this set of actions, we get some content which we can save back down to a. Obviously, it thinks it's a zip file, but we're going to name it result.docx. So it will save it as a Word document rather than a .zip file. And that Word document output there should be the updated file. So we'll have a look and see what happens now. So here I'm going to click test flow. I need to give it a name. So I'll just say James. And the score will go for gold, and we'll have a score of 90 this time. So we'll click run. And then if we wait for that flow to finish, we'll see that it's already initialized the variable. It's now going to be extracting that file. So that took a few seconds there to extract the Word document into a set of files within OneDrive. And then we've read it back. We've gone through these actions. So we've gone down the pass side, which is what we want this time because we scored more than 60, which was the pass mark. It's run the script. That took 6 seconds. And then we've taken the updated XML from the script, and we've overwritten document.xml with this file, and then we've created a zip file here, so that took 8 seconds. So it took a little while to run, but now we should have created that output file. So if I go to the SharePoint site where these files have gone, and I'll just refresh, here we are, we can see result.docx was updated about a minute ago. If I go into that file, we've got name James, score 90, and the pass section with the updated gold medal. So here I am in Excel Online, where I'm taking a look at the heart of the operation, which is this Office script, which I've called Word Template Regex. So regular expressions are a fancy way, essentially, of searching for strings within or substrings within text. And in this case, I'm also doing a replace using regular expressions too. So if we have a look at the function that's run when this Office script runs, we can see that it always expects a workbook, but I've just used a blank workbook here, so it doesn't really matter. It doesn't use this workbook anywhere else in the script. We've got an input string object parameter, so this is a string. This is going to be the XML coming from the document.xml file, which was extracted into the temporary folder. And then we've got operations, which is that array of all the various operations we want to run on the XML. So the operations can be, or they have 3 potential parameters for each operation. The first is the tag, so that's the name of the tag, that's a string. Then there's the operation, that can only be one of these 3 options: replace, include, or exclude. And then there's an optional argument at the end here, which is another string. So we know from earlier that this is going to be the text to replace the tag with if we're using that replace operation rather than include or exclude, which operations don't have an additional argument. So that's the input to the script. And the first thing that we're going to do here then, I've got a little function here, which Copilot helped me put together. And what this does is it's going to remove any XML tags between the 3 opening square brackets and the 3 closing square brackets. And the reason for that is it's quite important, because in my Word template, if I go to that now, you'll see that I'm replacing the 3 brackets, the name of the tag, and the 3 closing brackets. But the risk that we've got is that those in the XML file are separated. So if I change this from the word name here to just ABCD, you can see that Word there has identified that as an unknown word. It's putting it in as a red underlined spelling error. So if I now close down the document and I go to my downloads again, and I'll rename the file again to .zip, and open up the Word folder and the document.xml. Now looking down here, we'll see that we've got name and the 3 opening square brackets, but we don't have the name of the tag immediately after. In fact, this tag in the XML closes, as does this one. Then we've got a tag opening of type spell start. So that spelling error has actually saved itself into the XML of the file and separated the name of the tag from its opening and closing square brackets. So if I just look for the 3 brackets, the tag name, and the 3 closing brackets and do a find and replace, that isn't going to work because that now isn't in the document.xml. Really got to replace all of this. And it's the same if you change the formatting of that tag name. If you say make it blue or something and a different color or a different font to the square brackets, that would add in some more XML and separate it further. So what the first thing the script does is it removes those additional XML tags anywhere it finds the opening 3 square brackets and the closing 3 square brackets. So it finds that section here, and then in each of those cases it does a replace within those within that found bit in the middle, and it's just replacing anything within tags with an empty string. So that will strip it back down to just being the text we want to replace, the name of the tag. So the next thing the script does is it overwrites that input string. So once it's got the cleaned version of the XML with the tags back in place, it just replaces the input parameter input string with that new updated XML. And the next thing the script does is it applies one of 3 regular expressions to each tag identified in the operations array. So in the case that it's a replace operation, it applies this regular expression, which is the simplest of all. It's just looking for that tag name, and it's going to replace that all instances of it. That's what the G does here. All instances of that tag within the XML, it's going to replace with the argument, which is this string up here. And if it's the include type operation, it's going to apply this. I'm not a regex expert, so I again was helped to put this together using Copilot. But what this does is it looks for the tags at the start and the end of the optional section and deletes those, including the whole paragraph that they're in. That's what this P is for, the paragraph that it contains that tag. So by removing just the tags at the start and the end of the optional section, so here back in the Word document, we can see that we want to delete that past bit at the top and the end of the past tag at the bottom, and that will leave just the section that we want to include. And then in the case of exclude being the operation, it's almost the same, except that not only do we want to delete the tags before and after the optional section, we want to delete the whole section itself. So we can see how those work using regex.com. So I've copied and pasted the XML from the flow into this testing area here. And if I demonstrate each of those in turn, we can see that here's the name tag. So these slashes escape because these square brackets have particular meanings within regular expressions. So we have to put a slash beforehand so that it knows we were looking for the text opening square bracket we're not using it in a specific way as it would usually be used in a regular expression. So if I look here at the list of results, I can see that it's found the name tag. Now it's highlighted it here for me. So with this operation, it would overwrite this tag with the name of the candidate. So in the example I used, that was James. And then in the next example, which was this, and you'll notice actually that the number of forward slashes is slightly different. I had to double escape in the script to make it work. So there's 2 forward slashes in the script for every one in the example here, and that's because we're telling that script that we want to include the slash, which is then telling the regular expression that we want to include the square bracket. Here's the second expression here. So you can see here that this has matched both the opening tag, so this is the first result in the list, and it's matched the closing tag. So it will replace both of these with an empty string, which essentially just deletes that whole paragraph from the XML. So there's one, and there's the other. So it will include this bit in the middle, which is our congratulatory text and all that XML to do with the image. And here's the updated version with the last regular expression in. So in this case, it's including the opening tag here, so including the past tag. It's including the end, the closing past tag, but it's also including all the text between it. So in this case, all the XML between it rather. So in this case, it will delete that whole optional section as well as the opening and closing tags. So then the last thing that the script does is it runs all of those operations. So for each of the operations in the array, it's going to take the tag, the operation, and the argument if there is one, and it's going to run that reg expression to find and replace with the relevant argument. So if it's the replace argument, it takes the one from the operations array. If it's not replace, then it just uses the empty string to delete whatever XML was there in the input XML. And that's it. So here back in the flow, I'll test it one more time to demonstrate failing the exam. So I'll call myself James 2 this time, and we'll do a score of 50, which is a fail. So if I click done, again, that's going to extract the Word template into a temporary folder. So that took 5 seconds again this time. It's run our script, so it's still running it here. That's taken 3 seconds, slightly quicker this time. And then it's zipped up the file. Again, that's slightly quicker this time, only 3 seconds. And it's created that output file. So if I go back to OneDrive, so if I go back to SharePoint and look at the result, so unfortunately this time I've not passed, but you saw that it's deleted that image entirely. And in this case, the file will be a lot smaller than it was before because it doesn't contain any image at all. So that's it. With only standard actions, no premium license required, we've used an Office script to apply regular expressions to the pure XML of a Word document template that's been extracted temporarily to OneDrive, amended directly, and then zip back up into the resulting Word file, which is the output. So if you enjoyed this video, please like and consider subscribing to my channel. And all that leaves for me to say is thank you so much for watching, and see you later, Automator.